wanton brutality that you see taking place in the streets, being perpetrated by the enforcement arm of white supremacy, the thugs with badges, and their well-wishers on the sidelines, this is an expression of fear. Make no mistake, the bad guys are scared right now. The fear of God's been put into them. And the reason why is they are looking down the road. White supremacy is always looking to see where the trend is going. If they can't find a way to make the uprising stop, if they can't find a way to get the people to abandon what the streets are doing right now, then what's going to happen is a lot of these cops are going to wind up getting put in prison. Because what's going to happen is everybody's going to start saying, we need some reviews of these guys' records. Hey, there's been lots of cops getting away with murders long before George Floyd. We need to be looking at all these scumbags. So the police are very much fighting for their freedom right now, starting with their freedom to kill black people. But the rank and file white supremacists who may not necessarily have a badge, they're scared too, because they understand that their position in society has, as Abraham Lincoln put it, been assigned to them. It's been assigned, handed to them. But why is it then that their position has not been challenged and that they have the ability to run roughshod over other people's rights? It's because there's a dedicated gang of thugs with guns who the state has authorized to kill with impunity, especially black people. The system of white supremacy, white privilege, whatever you want to call it, all of their guarantees, goodies, and giveaways are backed up by credible violence. Not the threat of violence, but violence itself. They know that. So the rank and file white supremacists, they love the police. They love the fact that the police are there to make sure that the social, racial hierarchy pyramid never changes, never moves, because that's what the violence is meant to do. It's meant to keep black people in their place. Well, what they're seeing is black people long ago lost whatever fear they might have had of the white supremacists. But the thing is, black people had not broken through the mental block to decide that they were not afraid of white supremacist disapproval. Still trying to love daddy, still trying to be friends with daddy. Oh, I'd like to go to a movie theater and shake hands with white daddy or with these white supremacists. What they're saying now is, no, you know what? I don't give a damn if I never see you scumbags again. That's what's happening now. That's what's happening in the streets. The white supremacists have been trying their phony baloney charm offensive. Oh, the police chief of Houston says that he was disgusted by the murder video showing George Floyd being strangled to death. Yeah, but Art Acevedo was not very bothered by the video of Alva Brazil being gunned down in the street. The man died with his hands up. Oh, the phony sympathy doesn't fool anybody. The police thought to themselves that they were going to change the headlines, change the narrative, because they saw where this was going. They saw that this is a matter of the police are being delegitimized, and the police are looking and going, man, they're going to be treating us the same way the police get treated in Latin America and the same way they get treated in Eastern Europe, where your badge don't mean a damn thing. Yes, because as I keep telling you, authority comes from the people. That's what authority is. Authority is an agreement by the population that they are going to obey or otherwise accede to the wishes and dictates of a particular institution. When the people decide that they are no longer going to obey this institution, then you have no authority. It's as simple as that. Authority cannot be enforced without the people allowing it. Now, what you see is the white supremacists are trying to reassert themselves, and they're trying to do it through violence, and it ain't going to work. And you got some of these moron white supremacists online who are scared to death. These guys ain't going to bust a grape, ain't going to do a damn thing. They'll wag their finger at the TV screen or at their iPhone screen and say, well, they should just shoot those guys. First of all, it would be wonderful if they tried it, because that would be an enormous escalation. If the police decide that they're going to bring out the hardware, well, the problem is this is the United States. Everybody's packing heat. That's not a road that the police want to go down, especially not in this social climate. In New York City yesterday, you had protesters who had peacefully assembled. And the NYPD decided that they were going to publicly, because they know that everybody's videotaping this. I mean, half the people out there got their freaking cell phones up recording. So since the NYPD knew that everybody was recording this, they wanted to make a point. And the point was, we're on the same side as the neo-Nazis in Charlottesville. So the NYPD, one of them decided to take his police cruiser, in fact, actually two of them, and decided to drive his cruiser directly into the crowd of people. He saw the people there, saw the barrier there, saw the people peacefully assembled, and he decided, I'm going to plow my car right into them just to make the point. This is what these guys are up to. This is what these white supremacists are about in New York City.
And I wish the officers hadn't done that, but I also understood that they didn't start the situation. The situation was started by a group of protesters converging on a police vehicle, attacking that vehicle. It's unacceptable. So the officers have to get out of that situation. I'm not going to blame officers who were trying to deal with an absolutely impossible situation. The folks who were converging on that police car did the wrong thing to begin with, and they created an untenable situation. I wish the officers had found a different approach, but let's begin at the beginning. The protesters in that video did the wrong thing to surround that police car, period.
And what does Bill Empty Suit de Blasio say? What he says is, well, I don't agree with what they did. I don't know whoever it was, but these guys are in a tough situation and they were trying to get out of it. Now, when you watch the video, you can clearly see there's nobody behind that guy's police SUV. Nobody at all. And he knew that, completely and thoroughly open. If he didn't know that there was someone behind him, then why didn't he try to back up? He waited until the other squad car passed him, so obviously he was seeing what was happening behind him. And he decided, I'm going to go forward anyway just to make a point to these guys, just to let them know we're still in charge, because that's the entire point. Power is not power unless it can be abused. If everybody has the exact same rights, that means that you don't have any power, because power is the ability to do what others cannot. The NYPD wants to make a point. We're still in charge. We can still kill you with impunity. We can still run you over, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's the point they wanted to make. That's the point they were trying to make. And the only thing they did was they have now made it worse. Now, the white media is largely not covering that. I was shocked and amazed that CNN actually posted a video of it on their YouTube channel. But they did a one and you're done mention on Don Lemonade's show. That's all they did. That was it. CNN decided they covered that one time. Okay, we covered our butts. Now you can't say, you black media types can't say that we didn't say anything about it. But the rest of the white media is not mentioning it at all. This is deliberate. The propaganda arm of white supremacy is attempting to try to otherwise prop up the enforcement arm. They understand the cops have lost their legitimacy. This is what's going on here. This is a fight for the police to reassert their legitimacy. But legitimacy comes from the masses, just like authority. You cannot call yourself legit just because you're holding a gun or because you got some fellow thugs standing around with batons or tear gas. That's not what establishes legitimacy. You cannot force people to see you as legitimate. You cannot force people to accept you as legitimate. Now, you may be able to intimidate or otherwise frighten them into not attacking you or not challenging your brutality. You can probably do that for the short term, but the problem is it doesn't last. What was that old mafia saying? You had the child who asked that mafia boss, what's more important? Is it better to be feared or better to be loved? And the mob boss said, better to be feared, because fear lasts longer than love. But you see, that's the point. Fear lasts longer, but it doesn't last forever. That's the problem with trying to use fear. Ultimately, you have to appeal to respect at some point. Respect lasts longer than fear. Respect is the longest lasting way to get people to accede to your authority and to decide that you are legitimate and to accept your legitimacy. Respect is what does it. But white supremacy is not about respect. White supremacy is about authoritarian, autonomous dictatorship based on skin color. That's what white supremacy is about. And the NYPD, by doing this, they're sending the message that this is not going to be the end of it at all. Oh, you guys think that the NYPD is going to have any sort of reforms? We're sending a message that, yeah, this is what we think about your demands that police be punished. This is what we think about it. And Bill de Blasio is making it very clear. He's on the side of the bad guys. Sure, his delusions of being president have been shattered into a million irreparable pieces, but that's not to say that he doesn't think that if he makes himself useful to the white power brokers in New York, that they're not going to elevate him to a Senate seat or a governorship or something. Oh yeah, those moneyed interests in New York City who are looking at the unwashed masses, who are demanding that the enforcers of Wall Street's largesse, the protectors of the commissar class, the protectors of the billionaire crooks and the Wall Street scam artists. That's what the police's job is, because when stop and frisk was going down, nobody was going to Wall Street, where you know that 90% of those traders have drugs on them. They got cocaine, they got speedballs, they got meth on them. You don't even have to reference movies. You can reference your nightly news, for God's sake. Those guys on Wall Street is a freaking open air drug market. And yet you didn't see the police stopping and frisking anyone there. That was deliberate, because that's what stop and frisk was about. It was about a matter of intimidating all these Negroes. Don't be thinking to yourself, this is New York for you. This is harassment. This is an official harassment policy for black people. Well, what's happening now is apparently the protesters are returning the favor. There's an official harassment policy for the police. And to have the NYPD of all organizations taking their police cruisers and standing there for a long time, it was deliberate that he waited there as long as he did. That was deliberate. It was to make the point that this is not some spur of the moment thing. This is a matter of, this was planned out. He was just waiting. It's like, okay, everybody's watching. Good. Now I can go ahead and do this now that I know everybody's watching me. It's meant to embolden and encourage similar actions across the country, by the police or by any interested white supremacist who thinks they're going to pull something. See, these white supremacists, they got the little gangs online and such who try to support their efforts, like the 4chan racist who decided that they were going to shoot Black Lives Matters protesters in Minneapolis back in 2015. And then just a couple of nights ago in Louisville, the same thing happened. The police, or perhaps some white supremacist auxiliaries of theirs, decide to shoot at the protesters there too. Everybody knows this is coming from the police. Everybody knows that. But the police are thinking to themselves, well, the white media is not going to be asking any questions, and the DAs certainly aren't. See, the politicians are playing a game. They're playing the game of, we're going to give some phony words of sympathy, because we know that if the people decide that they are going to break the enforcement arm of white supremacy, then there's nothing to stop the people from marching on the policymakers and saying, now you guys got to be held accountable too. If you're able to inflict and enforce your will on the gun-toting enforcers of white supremacy, then the policymakers you're going to make short work of them. And so the line has to be held. This is a war that's happening right now, a war for control, a war for white supremacy to reassert its dominance, because without its enforcement arm, it has no means of enforcing itself. It has no means of inflicting its will and forcing you to live under and abide by its dictates. The only reason that any white supremacist law gets followed by anyone is because everybody knows that if you don't, they can call in some gun-toting thugs with badges to come and shoot you. The only reason that some illegal or unjust ruling, oh, well, Jason Van Dyke murdered a man in cold blood. Well, we figure that a couple of years behind bars is enough. Well, he's supposed to get first-degree murder for that. Well, the DA is not going to do anything about it. And, well, we've decided that we're going to overrule the jury's ruling. Sure, the jury said he should spend 25 years in prison, but we're overruling. That's a bit too much. Why should anyone accept that? Because you understand, at least at the individual level, you understand that if you decide that this guy should be punished to the extent that the public wants, well, the gun-toting thugs with badges are going to show up. And that is the mechanism, the social conditioning that white supremacy has relied upon in order to maintain this racist, white supremacist social pyramid. In order to keep this white supremacist disorder in place, you need organized violence that people know is going to happen. The white supremacists make a phone call, and here comes the gun-toting Gestapo. And they're going to make sure that it's understood these guys can kill you with impunity, because that's what's required. An enforcement arm that can be checked by the very people who they are brutalizing is not an enforcement arm at all. If the people have the ability to check the police and have the ability to punish the police and have the ability to make sure the police can't brutalize them, well, that's not an enforcement mechanism. An enforcement mechanism of a necessity has to have a monopoly on force, and its force cannot be countered or questioned. If anybody has an equalizer to that force, if anybody has a remedy to that force, well, it ain't enforcement now, is it? And this is what white supremacy understands. That's the reason why you got the cops here. They tried to figure out, well, can we start a counter narrative? The white media is trying to back them up. Oh, the police, they're making nice. Oh, the police, they even decided to take a knee. They're making nice. They're making nice. This'll fool you. This'll certainly fool you. You guys have short memories. This'll fool you, right? See the police. You should be glad the police. Look at this. The police are making nice. Why do you hate the police when they're just trying to be nice? The white media tried that. It failed miserably. And what's also failed is trying to rewrite the narrative here. The reason that these protests continue is because of two factors. One, this Derek Chauvin animal has not gotten the charge that he's supposed to get, first-degree murder. And his accomplices have not been arrested and charged with second-degree murder. That's part of what's fueling this. The people have already seen through the scam. They see exactly what it is going on. And the white media thinks, well, if we just don't say it, then we can stop this, because that's what their game is. They're trying to stop this. And they figured that if they can just redefine it, if they can just say, well, the protesters want justice. No, they have specific demands. Well, we can't do that because we got to stop this. You've put too many cops in prison already. Jason Van Dyke's in prison, Amber Geiger's is in prison, Michael Slager's in prison, and a few others are. We got to stop this. We can't be having it where it becomes a matter of specifically say people have to be in prison. We got to stop that. Let's stick to vague talk that doesn't really mean anything. Now, around the news offices of CNN, or should I say the news orifices of CNN, that kind of thing might play when the white supremacists behind their news desks are sitting there telling themselves that they've got all the control in the world. See, here's what CNN doesn't understand. YouTube may have the ability to make it where anyone who accesses their site sees a CNN video, and because of that, just by sheer law of averages, you're going to get more clicks than you would ordinarily. That's fine. But the thing about it is, you can get all the attention in the world. That doesn't translate into influence. That doesn't translate into believability. Just because people click on your video doesn't mean they believe what they're seeing. That's what they don't understand. Or rather, what they would desperately like to not accept and pretend like they don't know what's going on, because the truth is they're not going to admit to the horrifying reality that the enforcement arm of white supremacy has been delegitimized. And the propaganda arm of white supremacy has been largely delegitimized as well. And why is it the white media has found itself on the defensive, on its back foot? You need look no farther than the way that they've gone about misreporting and trying to cover up the reality of these uprisings. There's been a lot of property damage, to be sure. You can go ahead and talk about that all you want. It's not very interesting to me, but one thing that does need to be said is the white media is trying to push this narrative of, oh, it's nothing but black people who are doing all this looting. While there may be the occasional black person in there, the white media edits selectively. If you got 15 to 30 seconds of white people running by, the first black person you see, that 2 seconds of a black person passing in front of the camera for a hot moment, that's going to be what the white media actually puts on, because it's meant to fuel a narrative. But people are getting the word out that when you start to look at who's doing these arsons, who's breaking these windows, who it is who's running in these stores, running off with the merchandise, the majority of them are white.
It is incredible to see in a unfortunate way. I can only hope that this person isn't stealing and that maybe they are an employee. But based on what I have seen tonight.
Now that's what goes unsaid. The majority of the looters are white. But the white media keeps deciding, just like the same thing out of the Katrina playbook, they're not going to say that. And by the way, shout out to Tariq Nasheed for keeping everybody abreast of these videos and this footage of the white media trying to keep away from saying the word looters. And, oh, well, we're not sure what's going on here. Well, we see this woman with some clothing walking out of this broken storefront. Well, we sure hope that, maybe she's a customer. Maybe she's an employee. Yeah, because a customer or an employee would be walking out of the place with clothes under their arms in the middle of a riot, quote unquote. That's the best time to do your shopping. And I'm sure the employees were there taking money and putting in the cash register. Please come back again when the rioters have left. I'm sure that's what was going on, right? This is the white media. They're racist as hell. They understand exactly what their job is. It is to racialize whatever is going on in the society. When black people stand up for themselves, or if there's an opportunity to demonize black people, they leap on it. They understand exactly what the lie is, what the lie must be, and they push it as hard as they can. I'm not a big fan of all of these people with their cell phone cameras out, but the good thing that has come from all of this massive documentation of these uprisings happens to be that there's also been tons of videos of people showing, hey, who are the people who are really breaking these windows? Well, most of the people who are breaking the windows are white. And it seems that some of them, there's damn good evidence that they're actually police doing this. Well, that would make sense. I told you guys about how in 2015, during the height of the Black Lives Matters protest, you had some would-be Blue Lives Matters advocate, sympathizer. This guy decided to vandalize his own run-down beater pickup truck. He vandalized it himself with some Black Lives Matters graffiti or whatever. And then he tried to claim, well, it was some black guys who did it. I just put Police Lives Matter on there and they vandalized my old beat up pickup truck. These guys, these white supremacists who call themselves backing the badge, notice how they always back the badge with lies. They always back it with lies. And the thing about it is, where do they learn these kind of lies from? Learn from the police. Police organizations from the LAPD to the FBI to whomever, they have always relied upon a campaign of using agent provocateurs and officers pretending to be protesters or demonstrators in order to try to disrupt or otherwise undermine social movements and demonstrations, try to cast them in a bad light by sending their own thugs in there. And then you wonder why it is that none of these guys who are doing all this vandalism ever get caught, ever get charged, because they're police in many cases. The exact same police who use their squad cruisers to run over protesters. The exact same ones. And the so-called violent black protesters, notice how none of them are attacking any of the other protesters. They're not attacking passerby and such. It seems that the only ones who are actually interested in attacking people happen to be the individuals who either you can't identify how these guys got into the crowd, or the ones who seem to be dressed very similar and come in groups as if they were undercover police officers sent to infiltrate these protests. You start noticing some similarities forming. And then what they do is they turn around and take the stuff that they're doing and blame it on, well, there must have been some out-of-towners or there must have been some Russians or something. We don't know who it was, but it wasn't us. Who's shooting into the crowd at Louisville? Well, it wasn't the police. It certainly wasn't us. Yeah, but the very protesters who showed up would shoot at one another. They don't do it any other time. See, in Minneapolis, the 4chan shooters got caught. That was a case of the white supremacists who got a little bit too jolly and started broadcasting themselves. And you had the black protesters who were monitoring their 4chan threads and chat rooms and knew what they were going to do before they did it. That's how they intercepted them. See, the 4chan racists were a little bit sloppy, but the ones in Louisville were not. This desperation on their part shows that these guys they've run out of their little tricks that they were going to play, their little phony gestures that they were trying. They've pretty much run out. And at this point, it's a matter of, all right, back to business as usual. That's white supremacy's MO. Do the exact same thing, just more of it.